What did you do there? Sorry.
Just starting up the red carpet. We should be live on your YouTube. I'm going to pop over and make sure.
Okay, so wait, on YouTube.
Yeah, and I'll tweet the link at you. So you could even, you can tweet the link, and then you could even, if you wanted, you could pop it in your personal Facebook page.
Okay, hang on. We are live on youtube.com/Mark Hebscher. Are we on the red carpet yet? No, right?
Yeah, we are.
Oh, oops, sorry, folks.
It's all right. I'm going to get
appreciate
the link here. Where's the link here? Get shareable link. Okay. So I'm going to pop into my Twitter and send it over.
Ooh, that's exciting sounding.
Does that ding mean you're live? Do you get a notification when you're live on YouTube?
I think I do. But now I'm just going to find your tweet here. See, that's just, it doesn't show up in my mentions. Where else do I find it?
I haven't sent it yet.
That's why. Welcome to the red carpet, everybody. Sorry for this delay here. It's Good Friday. We're a little slow on the uptake because nobody has anything else to do today except for us that I know of. Nothing open. No place to go. Parks are all closed, aren't they? Something?
The parks are not closed, no, but the schools are definitely closed. So I've got the Rugrats.
They would be closed today anyway, though. This particular holiday can take on many shapes and forms. 4-day weekend for a lot of people under normal circumstances, right? And because Good Friday, Saturday is the day after Good Friday. Sunday is Easter Sunday. Monday is Easter Monday for those that, you know, have two families that they have to deal with under normal circumstances. We have Easter Sunday dinner at this side of the family's house. And then Easter Monday, we gather on that side of the family's house. None of that anymore. Not this year anyway. So good time to listen to this podcast.
Although, fun fact, most of us always had to work on Monday. Monday is like a day for like a bank holiday, if you will, or a school holiday. Like it's not a regular statutory holiday.
It depends where you are.
Okay, because in this province, I know that only the Friday is the statutory. You get the Friday.
That's the statutory holiday.
Right, but the Monday is like it's school, maybe, but school and banks and things like that. Like it's not us regular folk.
Right, schools and banks, not us regular folk. I'm a bit tired this morning because I stayed up late to watch Bianca Andreescu.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's Andreescu, not Andreescu. It's Andreescu.
Well, better you than me saying that.
Right.
All right, my friend. Now I actually got it right. So I did tag you in a tweet. So there should be a tweet now from us. So get this sorted.
Tweets now?
Yeah.
What? Oh, there it is.
It might be a whole different audience today of people who normally, I don't know, maybe, although people mainly work from home, but not everybody, but maybe people who would typically be at work or getting kids ready for school actually can watch us.
Yeah. Live or otherwise.
Right.
Normally, what would you be doing at 9:15 in the morning on Good Friday if you're up? There's no place to go. You don't have school. You don't have work.
Hebsy, a teaser for later in the program when you do talk about Bianca is somebody's already tweeted at us a quote that I was thinking of yesterday, a Hebsy quote about Bianca. You probably know what it is, but do you want me to hold on to this until we talk about Bianca? I got to ask you about something you were pondering aloud about Bianca.
You had to ask me, or a viewer had to ask me?
It's a viewer.
I know what it is. I said, is it possible that she's a flash in the pan?
Right. The Diamond Dog is wondering if she's still a flash in the pan.
Is it possible? That's what because nobody knew about her condition. She hadn't played. Nobody had her practicing. We were all like, oh my God.
Right.
Was it that serious an injury?
No.
And from what I can see so far, she seems to be the Bianca of old. But at the time, all of us were. Because everything we got was she's going to play in this tournament. She withdrew from this tournament.
Well, you know what's going to happen.
She's going to play there. She withdrew from there.
When she wins the Grand Slam, people are going to be throwing that quote back at you. Oh, flash in the pan, Hebsy?
Whatever the quote was. No. Could she be a flash in the pan?
I know, there was a question.
She is a flash in the pan.
Right.
There's a big difference.
Right.
Could she be?
In 2021, people don't see any difference.
all the athletes that were fabulous for a while and then fizzled out. Many of them.
Right.
Okay. A list as long as your arm. As long as both of your arms. Let me tweet this thing out and let's get going with the show.
Okay. It's only 9:18.
L-U-V-E? Is that how you spell it or live?
It's L-I-V-E, I think. I'm not sure.
How they could do that. All right. Okay, this is so exciting to be talking to a more captive audience than we normally would. Hi, again, red carpet is the preamble to the actual podcast. Thanks for joining us on YouTube. That's the only place. We've kind of consolidated here. There are all these different platforms, right, Mike?
Yeah, so Brian is on our YouTube, so I'm just saying hi to him because he sent a few notes. So he's excited about the tennis talk. Hello, Brian.
Okay, but Brian, please don't comment every 8 seconds on the YouTube, because when I see 642 comments and 638
we lost you, Hebsy.
of them are from you. You know, I know you want to have your own show, but like, you know,
hey, Brian,
it's for everyone. This is a very communal effort.
Brian, hit me up. You could have a tennis podcast. Hit me up.
There you go.
Okay, you want to?
Mike?
You ready to go? Yeah, it's 9:19. Let's go. Why not? We're punctual people. Here we go. All right, Hebsy. We're still off season. I'm doing okay, so I know how to start this show. Here we go.
Live from Toronto, it's Hebsy on Sports, episode number 226. Happy Easter weekend, everybody. Mark Hebsher in Toronto, Mike with you on the day after opening day. That's sort of a letdown, you know, that excitement, that euphoria, and then, all right. There's never a game the day after opening day. You notice that?
I did.
Such a big deal that the
it's
next
kind of
day
annoying.
has to be a day off.
It's annoying.
I think so too. Keep the momentum going, man. I want to see baseball again today. Such an exciting win by the Toronto Powder Bluejays with those electric blue. I love those uniforms.
Yes.
Over the pinstripers. Boo. From the Bronx. Anybody listen to the game on radio besides me? Did you watch it on TV? Did you stream it? Could you tell that Dan Schulman was in Toronto and Buck Martinez was in Val Harbor, Florida? Where's he from?
Somewhere in Florida.
Somewhere, I'm trying to think of the name of the town. It's just north of Dunedin. But anyway, they're in all different locations, and the game's in New York, but they don't have anybody in New York. But they have 2 people here, 3 people there, and they still put the broadcast together, and we got to watch. Those of you that did. We'll talk about that. Talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs, who can put even more distance between themselves and the second-place Winnipeg Jets with a win tonight in Manitoba. I'd really like to see the Leafs lock up Zach Hyman. I don't know how they're going to do it. Got to trade somebody like Nylander, who's got a big contract. But he won't be able to afford this guy. But boy, he might be a Selke Trophy winner. If not this year, someday. He is he's the heart and soul of the team. No offense to Matthews, Marner. They can score. They can pass. This guy does all the dirty work and can put the puck in the net. So let's get a petition going. I'll contribute what I can for the Leafs.
A GoFundMe.
To sign Zach Hyman long term. Got to have this guy if you're gonna go make a long run in the playoffs. Hey, the Vancouver Canucks have COVID issues. Big surprise in the NHL. See, when you're not playing in a bubble, shit can happen.
Right.
So now it's the Canucks, and now it's going to screw up the entire schedule in the North. And what's going to happen is teams are going to end up playing like 20 games in 27 days. They're going to be dog tired for playoffs. They're going to have to travel to the States. They're going to have to do some other quarantining. Who knows? It's just going to be a mess. All because of somebody on Vancouver. And before that, it was somebody on Montreal. Before that, it was somebody on Ottawa. Before that, it was somebody on Calgary, somebody on Buffalo. The Leafs have been exempt from this. But I don't know how much longer that's going to last. I don't like this. Hate to bum you out on Good Friday.
You're bumming me out.
The Raptors going down the tubes. And TSN's coverage is as well. You know, March Madness is fabulous. It's a wonderful tournament. But I like seeing the halftime shows from the originating U.S. network. I like seeing the best studio show in all of basketball. Everyone will agree. Canadians, Americans, they'll all agree. And if we have a chance to see the best studio show in basketball, we should be able to see it. But we don't, because TSN wants to give us their spin on what's going on in Indianapolis. So I don't like that at all. Bianca Andreescu, not Andreescu, it's Andreescu, on her way to the final of the Miami Open.
Wow.
Some pundit somewhere along the line suggested that she might be a flash in the pan. I don't know.
What does that guy know?
He was only speculating, as it happened in the past. Thank goodness she's not. Very exciting to watch her. I'm a little tired because I endeavored to stay up to watch her entire match, which didn't start till almost 11 p.m.
So what time did it end?
Excuse me for being bleary-eyed.
What time did it end?
After 1:30.
Yeah, that's tough. We're too old for that shit.
Speak for yourself, buddy. And the worst and best April Fool's pranks featuring Tom Brady and myself. I'll explain later. First, though, a little self-promotion. They tell you in the business, in the podcast business, the podcast manual says that because you're competing with terrestrial radio and other platforms, you've got to be unique. You've got to be different. You've got to stand out among the crowd. And as you know, podcasts are becoming more and more popular as terrestrial radio listening shrinks. This is our 226th podcast episode. And I'm proud to say, Toronto Mike and I started with no listeners. 0. Not even our own families. And now I'm proud to say we have thousands and thousands of listeners from all over the world. Flattering to say the least. I thought it was just going to be Leaf fans, Bluejay fans, Toronto sports fans. When I had a radio show, it was a local radio show in Toronto. The people who listened were pretty much from the Toronto area, unless you could get the signal a little further away. And we had a pretty strong signal at 590. But that to me was it. If you weren't from the area and you couldn't pick it up on radio. But now it's a whole other thing. I found tons of people who are huge Toronto sports fans that don't live in the Toronto area. What's all that about? So this is for them, for all of you. Thanks for listening. The numbers are up since the start of the pandemic for sure. So, something good came out of it, I guess. And I'm just going to ask you to tell your friends, anyone you might come across, that if they haven't subscribed to the podcast via your favorite provider and they haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, Live from Toronto, please do so. Love to have you aboard for an independent, somewhat controversial, humorous look at the world of sports.
I see a note here from Darren Shanahan who's pointing out, yeah, you're even popular in Quebec. He tunes in every week from Quebec. And I think what we're experiencing, Hebsy, is this craving for like smart, independent sports real talk. Like the fact that you're a true indie. You don't belong to Rogers or Bell or any of these conglomerates. Like you only answer to Hebsy, and I really think that's
a great feeling.
It's a great feeling. You're very good at this. We've known that since early '80s. We've known that you're awesome at this, and it's awesome that there's a place where people can go once a week and hear all your thoughts on everything happening. And it's Toronto centric, but it's still it's still interesting in a fantastic perspective. And congrats to you, buddy. This is really your show. I'm just here to make sure the buttons get pressed.
Thank you, Mike. And your contribution is imperative for this show to work.
And once in a while I press the wrong buttons, but not in a long time.
Can't expect to be a brilliant engineer and a brilliant co-host.
It's too many things.
Very good at both. Okay, let's get to it. Game 1 of 162, but last year's wildcard team could become this year's division winner. If opening day is any indication. What a ball game. The Jays beat the Yanks 3-2 thanks to, stellar defense, excellent pitching, timely hitting, brilliant execution, a little bit of luck, and Julian Merriweather, bringer of rain? That was Josh Donaldson, the guy they traded for him. No, this guy's the bringer of pain. Comes on in the bottom of the 10th. With the runner at second, of course, with the new rules, second year now with these rules where extra innings, each team starts with a runner at second base to move the game along. Mm-hmm. And the bringer of pain comes in to protect the 1-run lead and strikes out the side. Okay? The heart of the Yankee order, Murderer's Row 2.0, mm-hmm. blows them away and the Jays win 3-2. Now, I didn't see the game live. I saw it on the highlights, all those plays, but I listened to the game on radio because I feel that this is my job. This is for me to tell you what it sounds like as a radio listener. So instead of watching like everyone else, I said, no, I could watch it if I wanted to, but I need to listen to hear what it sounds like. Folks, I couldn't figure out anything. The simulcast is unlistenable. Oh. And that has nothing to do with Dan or Buck or the difficult positions they're in. Dan's calling the game from Toronto. Buck's at his home in Florida. It just doesn't work. The radio-only broadcast also had cut-ins from the local station. I believe it was Rob Wong, who works for the Fan 590, and he's doing these long cut-ins where it's like, all right, here's what happened. He's basically recapping what had gone on for those of us who were listening and couldn't figure it out. Because Dan and Buck are telling stories and back and forth, and before you know it, Dan says, 2-1 pitch to Gleyber Torres outside for ball 3. Now, that's the first time I had gotten any indication that A, Gleyber Torres was at the plate, or B, what had gone on, where the base runners or anything like that. It's incredibly frustrating. I could not, I listened to it, but I couldn't figure out, there was no flow. And again, nothing against Dan, who's already explained how tough it's going to be.
Sure.
Especially when your partner isn't sitting next to you, like he would be normally in a broadcast, or she normally in a broadcast booth. You can't tap them on the shoulder or on the leg, to say, all right, let's talk to the pitcher, let's serve another audience. It's virtually impossible. So I think it just sucks. But here's another thing. I was going through some old quotes and clips, and this was from Mark Shapiro on the Bob McCown podcast. He intimated that the Jays didn't have enough time this year to find a radio analyst to team with Ben Wagner, that they couldn't develop any chemistry in such a short period of time. And so they decided this year to shelve the radio-only broadcast. And he left the door open, the possibility that in 2022, the Jays will have an entirely separate radio team, and that this year is just a one-off. I think that will happen, Mike.
I heard something similar.
I think enough people will go, we can't. And also, I don't think they can sell any radio spots, because from what I heard, the cut-in with Rob Wong was like 3 or 4 minutes long. Now, normally you would be selling spots in there in between innings. Every half inning. Maybe the radio salespeople are having trouble, going to the stations. What do I want to spend this money on a simulcast for? I'm not getting anything individual. Also, they're not going to get any live drop-ins. Suppose you're Midas. You say, we want the live drop-ins. We want Ben Wagner or Mike Wilner last year to say, in the middle of an inning, and by the way, this pitching change is brought to you by Midas. Well, guess what? If you don't have an independent radio broadcast, you can't have those spots.
Right.
You're going to have to stick them in between innings. And then Midas is going, I don't want that. I want that live read.
Sure. Sounds
better when the live announcer is saying it. There's a better endorsement. And it probably costs more money too, because it's within the broadcast. But man, being the 7th commercial in a 9-commercial cluster between innings, they don't want that. So people aren't buying, or at least they didn't buy the first game.
Hebsy, I have an inside source that suggests that this was a last-minute decision to turf the radio-only broadcast, that there was somebody lined up and in place to analyze the game alongside Ben Wagner, and that it fell apart at the last minute. And you're right. I think what was intimated on McCowan's show there is absolutely right, and that next year they'll return to a radio-only broadcast. But for this year, I have a question. You said you listened to the radio. I watched a lot of the game, but I forgot about the whole radio things. I wasn't listening like it was a radio program. Was there any sign that Dan Shulman modified his play-by-play to some hybrid model, or was it just his typical television broadcast?
No, there wasn't. You can't go back and forth. You can't be thinking in the middle of a discussion with Buck Martinez about the guy they're showing on the screen. He can't all of a sudden be going, well, what about the radio listener? It's impossible. You lose your focus on the game. And they're not going to say to him, Dan, just do it as a radio broadcast, because they've got the graphics and they've got the information and the cut-ins. That's another thing. When you're listening to the radio broadcast and you're now hearing Hazel May doing a story about a guy that they've got a shot. Let's say it's Nate Pearson, for example. And there's a picture of Nate Pearson. They've got a shot of Nate Pearson, and she's doing a voiceover saying that she had talked to Nate Pearson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That doesn't come out on the radio broadcast because she's reading a script that's made for television, where the visuals enhance the audio, or vice versa. Well, they complement each other, but it doesn't work when you're only listening to something that's being described to a viewing audience. It just doesn't work.
That's too bad. But again, hopefully they fix this for 2022, and this is just a 1-year COVID thing.
Fix it now. Do something now. I mean, you've got Ben Wagner in Dunedin, Florida anyway. How tough is it to put Ben Wagner on the air while he's there and let him do a radio broadcast by himself, for crying out loud, just to describe something?
Sure.
And take the pressure off the TV announcer, who doesn't have to worry about a radio-only audience. Anyway, I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Okay, but okay, you don't have to talk about it anymore. But
unless you've got some.
No, what I want to do is I have to make sure on a nicer day when I'm outside, I got to make sure I listen to the game on the radio, and then I'll come in with my analysis.
Don't do it. You'll be so frustrated. You go, where are they? And then you're going to hear runners at first and second, 2 and 1. You're going, what is the first and second? What happened? What did I miss?
You're not the only one frustrated by this. Geddy Lee is now on the record as being very disappointed in this decision not to have a radio only broadcast. So
Geddy Lee's like me. Geddy Lee used to score the games, man. He's sitting there. You're listening to the radio broadcast. You're scoring the game. The announcer goes 6-3 put out, and the runner moves to third with 2 outs. So you're there. You see it. You've got it.
During the game,
you don't get that on the TV broadcast.
During the game, I popped over to, it's called Twitter Spaces, but Mike Wilner was basically speaking kind of live. So the game's on and he's chatting and there's people in there. And it was basically, it was clearly difficult for Wilner not to do play-by-play because he's not allowed to do play-by-play. Like that's a violation of the licensing or whatever.
Right. So what? So he's doing a live...
like he's referencing things that happen, but he's trying to talk more generic. Like it was kind of a tough balance, but I could tell it was tough for him to kind of be watching the game, have a microphone.
Why would you want to do that?
Have an audience. Well, it's to, it's for the Toronto Star. It was a Toronto Star thing, right? Like all the Star.
So the Toronto Star wants to provide play-by-play, but they don't have
not play-by-play.
Officially do it.
They wanted to have some, have their people like Gregor and Laura Armstrong and all their people together to talk about the season during the game. So this happened.
These are people that haven't been down to Dunedin and haven't been close to the team. They've been following the team from Toronto.
Sure, of course.
Like everyone else, right?
Sure, yeah. Everyone except Keegan Matheson, by the way, who did go to Dunedin.
But this might be the one year that anything you're going to get from people that are sitting in Toronto is going to be no different. You're not going to learn anything. And when I listen to analysts and stuff, I want to learn stuff. You tell me something I don't know.
Sure.
But unfortunately for these reporters, everything they tell us, we already know. We're finding out at the same time from every single source.
But Mike pointed this out, is that Rosie DiMano is in Dunedin, but she has the same access to the players as Wilner does in Toronto. Like they have the same access, even though she's in Dunedin.
Right. But at least you're there. You can see it. You can feel, you can witness with your own eyes something that someone didn't take video of and say, I saw this happen.
Right.
Saw him throw that pitch. I saw that. I saw the camaraderie, something. So much more difficult. When the game ended, by the way, yesterday, I did flip over onto the television side. I watched on Sportsnet. They had some technical issues trying to interview Randall Grichuk in New York because Hazel May is in Toronto. Grichuk's got the headphones on in the dugout, and he says, and Hazel asks him a question, and he's like, I'm sorry, Hazel, I'm getting 2 feeds in my ear. So she tries again, and then there's another problem, and then she tries again, and then they finally get the interview in. I'm thinking, how tough is this, man? It's tough enough to talk to the guy on the field with, the Gatorade gang waiting to douse you. And now here it is. You're just trying to talk to a guy who can't see you, doesn't know where you are, doesn't know where to look.
Right.
And that's tough. That's tough. By the way, on the panel, John Axford adds nothing. And the same with Justin Morneau. They're not excitable guys. I know they were fine pros. They're excellent major league players born in Canada, but just because they're Canadians doesn't mean you stick them on the desk. And that their analysis is going to be, something you have to hear. They're dull. Really. Yeah. Okay. So Morneau and Axford, no, but Vernon Wells, I like Vernon Wells. Thought he had some character, some personality, some charisma. Doesn't have to be born in Canada. Former Blue Jay.
He's sneaky witty too. Like I find him to be. He's
I like
a good
that.
one.
And listen, I liked Cliff Floyd. I like Joe Siddle. Okay. But Morneau and John Axford, you don't need them. Sorry. And the electric blue, powder blue uniforms, fantastic.
Agreed.
All right, so I tried to stay up all night long. I had to wait till it was about 11:15 because of 2 rain delays to finally watch 8-seed Bianca Andreescu fight back from like the bottom of the mountain to win a 3-setter, another 3-setter, rain delayed. That took 2 hours and 42 minutes to play. Finished at the ungodly hour of 1:35 a.m. And Bianca's now in the final against the number 1 seed Ash Barty at the Miami Open. This girl has played every match she's played, I believe, has been in a 3-setter. She's just coming back. Yours truly said not that many months ago, what's the deal with Bianca? Is she ever going to play again? Is she maybe a flash in the pan? We hadn't seen anything from her. No word as to her training. She had dropped out of one of the tournaments. She lost early on in Australia, right? But she surprised us all. She's been unbelievable. What a player. She's going to win tomorrow, too, even though Ash Barty's the number one seed and has spent considerably less time on court. Watching Bianca come back yesterday, for example, incredibly, she's taken on the number 23 seed, Maria Sakkari of Greece. So Bianca wins the first set. I stayed up I watched the first set. She won it in a tiebreaker, 9-7 in the tiebreaker. And then I dozed off and I didn't see what happened. And I woke up again. She lost the second set, 3-6. And then in the third set, they're at 5-5. She gets broken at 5-5. Now Sakkari is serving for the match, up 6-5 in the third. Chance to serve out the match. Doesn't win a point. Bianca takes all 4 points, breaks back, goes to the tiebreaker, wins the tiebreak 7-4, wins the match.
Wow.
Fantastic.
I missed a beauty.
And I'm watching her, and half of me is going, she can't keep this up, man. She was injured for a whole year. She didn't, there's no way. And she keeps not only getting to balls, but she's pounding them back, hitting winners. And this other girl, too, was tremendous, Sakkari. It was just a great match. And I'm dozing in and out of this one. I come back, and
right.
I can't stay up to watch the whole thing. I can't get the whole essence of what was going on. But, it came in fits and starts, and it was wonderful. And the thing I noticed most about Andreescu, and by the way, the other day when she's playing, one of the commentators with an Irish accent, she says, "Oh, that must be her sister sitting there." And I'm saying, Bianca doesn't have a sister. So whoever this commentator is, doesn't know she's talking. She knows the dog, Coco. But she doesn't know that she doesn't have a sister.
That's a good Irish accent you do.
Thank you.
Well done.
And I don't even know who this woman is, because a lot of these announcers that you see, you never see their faces, and they never identify these announcers. Just a couple of disembodied voices discussing it.
Right.
So anyway, so I'm watching, and I noticed that Bianca takes her time when she's returning serve. She plays the game at her own pace. Watched her the other night against Muguruza, and Muguruza's ready to serve. She's, 4 or 5 bounces of the ball, ready to serve. And Bianca's gone to the towel, taking her time, going back to her place, jumping up and down in place at her own pace, controlling the pace of the match. And she did the same thing yesterday. Smart player, gets the other players off balance, hits these occasional drop shots, like Hyun-Jin Ryu, pitching, change up, fastball. Sneaky fast, another changeup, slower. Get you to chase that, get you running all over the place. Tremendous to watch. Anyway, tomorrow she takes on Ash Barty, the number 1 seed from Australia, in the final of the Miami Open. And I'm telling you, with Serena Williams, ready to retire pretty soon. I mean, she's certainly not the Serena of old. The women's is wide open. And Bianca is the best of the bunch when she's in shape. She won only, 3 matches a couple of years ago?
Right.
You only won the Rogers, Indian Wells, and the U.S. Open. Not some schmadre tournaments. 3 huge tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
And beat Serena in 2 of them. Serena backed off.
Right.
She said, I don't want to play. She had to withdraw. She said, I'm not going to beat this girl.
Right.
Then she got her ass kicked in the U.S. Open. So who's going to take over Serena's crown? It's going to be Bianca Andreescu.
Woo! I love it.
Okay?
I love
all the stuff
song.
I said before. I'm glad I was wrong. I didn't suggest she won. I was only asking the question: is it after what happened with Jeannie Bouchard? What happened with pick any athlete that was great for the first couple of years, and then Anna Kournikova? I don't know. I'm not picking on tennis players, but there's lots of people in lots of sports.
Yeah, but Anna never actually won. Did she ever win?
No, you're right. She didn't. But it didn't look good. It looked bad because she had numerous injuries.
Right.
Remember, even the year she won 3 events, she took a couple of months off between wins.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't even play.
Right.
Anyway.
Okay, so excited. Okay. Let me say it as a guy who's a casual fan and really only watches the majors. I got to say, I'm so happy to hear that Bianca might not be a flash in the pan. This is exciting. And I'm even looking at the live chat on your YouTube page, and there's a lot of buzz. This is like if the Leafs were on a 10-game winning streak or something. Bianca's back and everybody's jazzed.
Well, remember, she already won that U.S. Open. Shows she's the best current athlete, Canadian athlete in the world. No offense to Alphonso Davies, who plays in a team sport. This girl goes out there by herself and kicks ass.
What about Onrait?
She also plays a brand of tennis that's different from most of the other women. She can serve and volley if she wants. She'll pound away from any kind of game you want. Drop shots, doesn't matter. She plays like Bobby Riggs used to play. And in that, I mean a variety of shots to keep the other player off balance.
That's a throwback there. I was thinking, I agree with you. She's probably the top athlete in the country right now, but I just want to throw in Onrait DeGrasse because it might be a very big year for him.
True, but Onrait DeGrasse, again, plays once in, how often do we get to see him? A couple of events, a world championships and Olympics every 4 years.
No doubt.
I'm talking about someone who could play every week and, she wanted to. She could win a lot of tournaments. And she's 20.
Love it.
She's playing 24 and 25 and 26-year-olds. She's kicking their asses. Okay. Vancouver is next scheduled to play April the 8th. That's the Vancouver Canucks in Calgary because they had 3 additional games postponed by the NHL because of COVID-19 protocol. That's right. No bubble to play in, folks. So you got to depend that everybody on your team and all the people associated, the managers, the trainers, et cetera, had better keep their noses clean. Canucks games against the Edmonton Oilers Saturday and the Winnipeg Jets Sunday and Tuesday have been postponed, in addition to the home game against the Calgary Flames that was postponed Wednesday. So that's 4 Canucks games because forward Adam Gaudette, defenseman Travis Harmonic, and a member of the coaching staff all tested positive.
Whew.
So, Mike, that's going to screw up the entire schedule for the North. And the worry is that if the players aren't being stretched to the minimum by now, they're going to be dog-tired and more susceptible, perhaps, to getting sick. Not necessarily COVID sick, but also just getting sick, run down, and their immune system perhaps being compromised if they're not vaccinated, et cetera.
Well,
as the NHL tries to squeeze in their full schedule prior to the playoffs. Now, the Leafs haven't had any COVID issues at all, thank goodness, knock wood. Doesn't mean it can't happen.
Sure.
Leafs and Jets tonight from Winnipeg, and the Leafs lead the Jets by 3 points and have a game in hand. Jack Campbell looks for his 8th straight win without a loss. He was terrific the other night in a 3-1 win over the Jets. And now we concern ourselves with anyone that came in contact with these Vancouver Canucks players. Who did they play prior to it? What's the contact tracing like? How far do you go back?
Hebsy, speaking to you now in early April 2021, it's an interesting time because if it was an American-based team, like a team in America, it's safe to say everybody would have been vaccinated by now. But being in Canada, you're not wanting to jump the line, thankfully, no NHL player has been vaccinated yet. So but rest assured, and I'm not saying this changes anything with regards to getting COVID and giving it to others, but it completely eliminates the possibility of hospitalization and being in an ICU and all the scary stuff that comes with COVID. But so this is the time where there's a huge Canadian American difference when it comes to vaccinations.
Yeah, absolutely. After watching Zach Hyman play again the other night, I'm convinced that he is twice the player he was last year.
Woo.
First of all, he must have been taking power skating lessons because he's got a burst of speed now that he never had before. It was always Hyman gets beat to the puck in open ice by a quicker skater. Now, I don't know where it came from, but boy, he's got that turbo boost where he blows by another guy, gets a chance on goal, sticks his shoulder down, leans in, gets a good opportunity, maybe gets a rebound like he did the other night. And I don't see him lose any one-on-one battles on the boards. I don't know about you, Mike, and I know that I watch every game the Leafs play, and I don't watch every game that Boston plays, so I can't compare him to Patrice Bergeron or whatever, but this guy does not lose one-on-one battles. He is a key element of that team, and he has to be retained. You have to sign this guy to a long-term deal. You have to find out a way to create cap space to sign him for $5.5 million a year, $6 million a year. I don't care. But you've got to have this guy on your team if you expect to go deep into the playoffs. You just have to.
Yeah, you need those kind of guys on your team. You're right. He's
the only kind of guy. There's no offense to Wayne Simmons. Wayne Simmons is not the player that Zach Hyman was. Wayne Simmons was never the player that Zach Hyman is now. He's a good, effective player. He's a third-line player. He's not a great scorer. He's okay. Good in front of the net, gets his nose dirty. But I've been watching him, and he gets knocked off the puck a little easier now than he was before, getting on in age.
Right.
And, I'm watching this saying, okay, so who are the tough guys on this team? Who are the big, strong guys on this team? And it's like Hyman and Muzzin. And I don't know. Everyone else, no, but think about it. Everyone else is kind of flashy.
Right.
Kerfoot and Mikheyev and Marner and Nylander and Matthews and, Joe Thornton, okay, but he's, 47 years old or whatever. But for the most part, the Leafs are a quick skating team, not a physical team.
A good point. Joe Thornton will be the first Leaf vaccinated when they open it up to 40 plus. He'll be the first one. Hey, shout out to Andrew on the YouTube page. And again, if people are listening to the podcast right now, we go live every Friday at 9:20 a.m. on Hebsy's. He calls it Live from Toronto with Hebsy. It's a live stream on his YouTube
I stole
page.
that line.
Live
from Toronto. That was the opening to Sportsline.
Love it.
It was live. We did it live.
F it, you'll do it live. I love it. But shout out to Andrew, who's just pointing out that Hyman is, he says he's gritty, but not the mascot, but he's gritty.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah, the word grit, look, the word grit is an easy word to throw in,
Not afraid to get dirty.
Sandpapery.
Yeah.
You don't normally hear it with other sports. They don't call football players gritty, but baseball players that get their uniforms dirty because they're diving after fly balls or ground balls or getting dirty sliding into bases. Right. They're not known as gritty. Gritty is like a Canadian word for hockey players.
We like our hockey players gritty.
Think about it. The hip, grit and determination.
Yeah.
Okay. Toronto Raptors are limping their way to the finish line in this crazy, ridiculous NBA season. They should be given medals. Every player, every member of the staff should be given medals for what they've gone through. 2 straight seasons without a home. I mean, that's torture. That's unfair, unjust.
We'll talk to the Bluejays.
But I'm talking about the Raptors now.
I know.
I get it with the Bluejays. But come on.
I know it's tough. You're right. It's tough.
They were in a bubble last year.
Right.
Anyway, no real home, COVID issues, guys traded away, key guys, lovable guys. A lot of people saying the Raps now should have traded Kyle Lowry now that they've descended to the lower rung of the Eastern Conference. And it's easy to say that. What's the future look like of this team? How are we going to, do? But as for this year, do you really even expect them to make a run at the playoffs, even though there's a play-in where you can be 10th and you could still get a chance to make the playoffs? Raps are currently 11th in the East, 18 wins and 30 losses. Should they be chasing the final playoffs spot, the play-in spot?
Fade for Cade?
Yeah.
Who, by the way, I don't see a lot of NCAA, but I watch March Madness, and he was in a very small sample size. It means nothing, so I'm going to preface it by saying that. But really, I found him very underwhelming in the time I saw Cade. But anyway, because all I saw was, go ahead.
You've been watching March Madness.
Yes, I have. Yes.
And we talked on the last show about how great Kia Nurse is as a basketball analyst.
Yes.
But unfortunately, we're missing something great. Have you noticed when you watch the games on TSN, March Madness, have you noticed the studio show is different?
You got to watch on CBS.
I can't.
Well, sometimes you can. Like, it depends.
Well, you can on CBS, but I mean, if it's simulcast on
no, you get the US ads and US everything on the CBS.
Where do you get that? I couldn't.
Oh, on my
automatically my cable goes to the TSN broadcast.
On my Buffalo CBS.
No, that's the CBS ones. I'm talking about the other night on.
It
was on TNT.
No, you're right.
So on TNT, it's of course TBS and TNT is Turner, and that's the greatest studio show of all time.
Yeah, we're SOL.
That is. Inside the NBA, those guys, that's Ernie Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith.
Right.
So when I'm watching the TSN cut-ins, I'm like, and nothing against Rod Black, Jack, Leo, Kate, Kia Nurse.
Right.
But I want to see the originating network. I want to see the best studio show in basketball.
Right.
I don't want to see a local version of it because Jack Armstrong and Leo and Rod are not going to give me anything close entertainment or information-wise than those great studio commentators.
But you know what you sound like right now, Hebsy? You sound like the guys who are like, I want the US Super Bowl commercials, not the crap.
No, this is completely different.
Different but similar.
I know. This isn't a one-off for the Super Bowl game only.
But
this is something that you're used to watching. If you're a basketball fan, it's must-see TV. Every basketball fan will tune in to watch that the way hockey fans used to tune in to watch Don Cherry.
Right.
It's a cult because it's not just Charles and Shaq. It's a fabulous show that's been on for years, and it's already won numerous Emmy Awards. So when the TSN cut-ins start to win Emmy Awards for their 5 or 10 minute halftime show. Fine. When you watch football, do you expect TSN to cut in with Mark Rowe and Corey Warren and a couple of Canadian-born NFL players? No, you expect to watch James Brown on CBS with Boomer and Coach Cowher. You expect to watch Kurt Menefee on Fox with Terry Bradshaw and Jimmy Johnson.
Right.
That's what you expect. So if they don't do it for football, why are they taking the great studio show
so why
away
is it?
from us and inserting their own local one?
Like,
remember, it's March Madness. They're not inserting Raptors stuff.
Right.
They're inserting their own stuff on March Madness.
Is it just because TSN wants to market their basketball experts that are on their roster? Like, is it just a branding exercise?
Coached at Niagara how many years ago?
Yeah, a while ago.
Okay. Charles Barkley played in the NBA for how many seasons? And played college ball at Auburn. Knows about March Madness.
And he's a great personality.
Played in the NBA for how many seasons? And knows about college basketball. Played at LSU.
Right.
Kenny Smith, North Carolina, played in the March Madness. Played many years in the NBA.
Right.
So, and they're already a fantastic show. It doesn't matter if they're American, Australian, I don't care.
Right.
I want to watch the best show. I don't want the local station cutting in with their version of it.
Annoying, I know. It's annoying. I guess the reason I don't question it is because I'm just so used to this being what happens. Like, wait, because TSN pays for it and they can do whatever. I guess they could do whatever they want.
They pay for football, NFL.
I know.
They don't do it for NFL games.
I would love to know a reason. Like, I need an insight. It must be to promote their personalities and talent, and it must be a branding exercise for TSN. Like, it's got to be all about branding. That's my guess. But it would be interesting to find out. I know.
I'm watching the game. I'm going, I can hardly wait to hear what Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith say about this. And instead, I get what Jack Armstrong and Rod Block think about this.
We got to get the like maybe in the Hebsy on Sports Club, we got to get like the pirate stream where you can bring in the original U.S. broadcast for the when their game's not on. Watch it on a pirate stream.
Or we need somebody to surreptitiously record, inside the NBA from inside the studio and then live stream that
on your YouTube page. Yeah.
Yeah, on the YouTube page, right. Okay, so I've been watching the local shows, Tim and Friends, Jay Onrait's show, that type of thing.
How's that going?
And the other day on one or both of the shows, they run this clip of a Cleveland sportscaster who yells at a fan after the opening day loss.
Right.
The Indians had the Cleveland baseball team had against the Detroit Tigers. So it's just this guy who's been there for years. I don't even know his name. And it's just his face looking at the camera. And you hear the voice of a guy going, I think they should have pinch hit for so-and-so or whatever the guy said. And this guy just yells at him and calls him an idiot.
Right.
And they're running this clip saying, this is what's been going on. And I'm looking at it going, I used to do this. McCowan used to do this. Right. This used to be regular fare on sports talk radio. Back when the radio station was independent and didn't have to have its guests from the same company as experts.
Hell, Storm and Norman used to do that. Right.
This is sports talk radio. Someone gets on the air and you disagree with them. Can Mike Wilner do?
Right.
I don't know if you ever called someone you stupid idiot and hung up on them, but
no.
That's what those shows are about in a lot of ways. So I didn't get the fact that they showed this and made a big deal. Look what people are saying.
Right.
This is old shit, man.
Do you have any recordings?
McCowan used to scream at callers, call them fools, idiots. How did you dial the phone with a straitjacket? Hang up on them. We got that from a guy named Pete Franklin in Cleveland, of all places, where this guy should know.
Right.
This was back in the 70s. He would scream and yell. You don't know what you're talking about. It was the most entertaining radio you would ever hear.
Okay, tell me.
Because you had to come on the air and you had to know what you were talking about. And Pete Franklin, the host, knew what he was talking about. He didn't go off on stuff unless he knew. And he did. He knew his facts. And if you challenged him, you said, let me tell you something right now. In 1938, and this happened last week, and he knew. This guy who was on yesterday, this bozo, had no idea what he was talking about. This hitter he was talking about. Did you watch him last year, how good he was? And the guy wasn't a good hitter. So the host had no credibility at all. But they made a big deal out of it. This is something that these shows are doing now, where they've got interns picking stuff off the internet and saying, "Hey, this is programming.
Right.
This is content. Just scour the internet."
Right.
It's like watching Daniel Tosh's show, Tosh 2.0.
Sure.
Or Tosh.0. It is. All they do is they just have people just look everywhere on the internet, YouTube, everywhere, for clips that have anything to do with sports.
Or even remember
a programming in the world.
Talk Soup. Do you remember Talk Soup? Does this ring
fabulous show?
Right, it's that same deal, similar.
Who was the original host of Talk Soup? Was it Greg Kinnear?
Yeah, Greg Kinnear. Yeah, that's correct.
What a great show!
And then he got nominated for an Oscar. I don't think he won the Oscar.
Well, what a great show that was, because he would run a clip from Young and the Restless, and he'd say, what is going on with Victor Newman and Nicky Newman, right?
And
then he'd go, let's take a look. And they'd run this clip and come back going, Catherine Chancellor has the ugliest hands of anyone I've ever seen in my life. And then they'd show a close-up of her gnarly hands with rings and long fingernails. Anyway.
Right. Oh, by the way, Joel McHale, who went on to become more famous for
Joel
Community,
McHale,
he also, and they did try. Now, this is going back a bit, but when Jay Onrait was on my show the first time, I got clips of this and he couldn't believe I found them. But because my intern scoured the internet, but they did try to do a similar talk soup type thing in Canada with Jay Onrait. Before Jay and Dan fame, they try to show like that. I can hunt down some clips for you, but yes, that did happen.
Great concept. So I think both shows that I mentioned had run that. And Tim and Friends, I noticed, is that all of Tim's friends are Rogers employees pretty much. Did you notice that?
Yes, but this is the problem. This is exactly the problem. Like all of Tim's friends are Rogers, Sportsnet, people that they're trying to, again, boost the brand of and present as like subject matter experts. It's all part of some Rogers empire. That is the problem, right?
And all the guests on the radio shows seem to be every Rogers personality you can possibly lay your hands on. Anyone that's been on the air at Rogers, and even some Rogers producers who aren't normally on the air. It's like incestuous, man. Like Tim and Friends should be Tim, and he should be able to choose. Maybe he does, and they say no, it's got to be Rogers people. So
okay,
can we get Toronto Mike on? No. Toronto Mike's not a Rogers.
He's an independent.
Get Hebsy on? No. We're gonna get Hebsy on. Can I get McCowan on? Wouldn't that be great? Oh no.
Right.
And the other thing is that they've referred a couple times to Sid and what he's doing on City, and now I see the connection. I see it in full Technicolor. I get it. All right. Sid keeps his hands in the cookie jar there a little bit. There's still that connection. He watches the show. He comments on the show. He tweets about it. And anything Sid does that's even mildly sports related on the morning show, they'll take a clip and they'll run it on Tim and Friends. So Sid is still a friend of Tim's.
So what's your review of Tim and Friends? Like, what is the Hebsy review since you actually listen to the show?
I think some of it's good, some of it's forced. Some of it is just, let's introduce you to many of these other Sportsnet personalities. Let's take them away from their desk job or whatever their other gig is, doing play-by-play, color analyst. And let's put them in this nice, friendly environment that we have here. So I'm okay with that. The other thing too is, look, you're trying to do, and I haven't listened to them on the radio. Again, it's a simulcast I get, right? But that's a television show. It's definitely a TV show. And they've added Jesse, what's Jesse's last name? Jesse Rubinoff.
Okay.
As sort of the producer, content creator, guy that looks at the internet and checks out the tweets and comes up with material that's provided by other people, right? Hey, we found this on the internet and we found this TikTok,
right,
which we're going to show you 3 times and then run it in slow motion. Well, that doesn't work if I'm listening. But that's all.
Cheap and easy content, Hebsy. Why not? Now, have you watched any breakfast television with Sid?
No.
I don't know.
I've seen some clips, but I'm not.
Because my buddy feels.
And the other thing is, again, I like Sid, and I think Sid is capable of doing anything on television as far as I'm concerned. Anything live you throw at him. But unfortunately, Sid's on a show where another member of that show is the most annoying person on television.
Poor Dina. Okay. Because my buddy caught some of Sid on breakfast television. Now feels sorry for Sid.
All right. No more feeling sorry for anybody.
Right.
I wanted to point out the fact that Major League Baseball, the fact that it's back, there are crowds at games. They don't have to pipe in fake crowd noise like they used to. Thank God. So there are crowds.
Yes.
Like yesterday, there was 10,000 in New York with the Yankees, 8,000 in Detroit, 20,000 in Denver,
right?
13,000 in LA to see the Angels, and basically anywhere from 20% or 10%, the lowest, and up to about full capacity.
Yeah, I think Arlington,
depending
is full
on
capacity.
where the ballpark is.
Yeah.
How many people you can get into the park, and
right.
different rules at different ballparks. For example, Mike, if you go to Fenway Park in Boston, you are not allowed to bring in any bag. No bags allowed. Like at British soccer matches, no bags. Maybe a clutch purse they might allow you, but no bags. And screenings, health screenings.
Sure.
But
yeah,
you don't have to wear a mask.
Interesting. Can I ask
in Minnesota?
Yeah, go ahead.
Verbal responses to questions only. Hi, if you feel, I don't know, feeling any symptoms? No. Okay, that's Minnesota. No masks. You don't have to worry about that. Cleveland, masks are mandatory. No bags. Detroit, health screening only. Hi, how do you feel? You have any symptoms? All right, off you go.
Got a fever?
Houston and Texas, no restrictions. 0.
Right.
You can go in without a mask. You can yell. You can be 2 inches from someone else.
Yeah. You can bring back the kiss cam.
Right. In Oakland, California residents only. No tailgating. That's a tough one in Oakland. In Seattle, high-tech cleaning methods, air purifiers to ensure that the fans, including, practicing safe distancing, are in an environment that is completely disinfected or as best as they can do. In Miami, drone technology will disinfect the ballpark. Like the way drones are now taking over for crop dusters?
Yes.
Yeah. So this drone technology is going to spray, I don't know, some stuff.
Sure.
Cleaning stuff.
Aegean.
To disinfect the ballpark.
Right.
In New York, at the Mets games, you have to have proof of a negative COVID test or proof that you've been vaccinated.
See, that one makes sense. That makes sense to me, that one. Yeah.
So that's a good one. The Cubs, Milwaukee, St. Louis, all the same. Mandatory masks, no bags allowed. In Cincinnati, masks are mandatory. The rest is okay. In Arizona, they're going to ask you questions. How do you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe take your temperature. And in Colorado,
mm-hmm.
Here's the restrictions. You ready for this?
Yeah.
No seeds or nuts in the shell.
Okay. That's
everybody different.
That's for the nut allergists.
That's everybody's different.
But we're used to that here in this country, of course, because every province has its own rules. Like every province sets the rules for COVID, and I'm sure it's every state down in the states there. But what's, of course, as we mentioned earlier with the NHL, the big difference is people who want to be vaccinated, because there's a whole different contingent of people who don't want to be vaccinated. But anyone who wants to be vaccinated, it seems like in most states have had the opportunity to get jabbed. Like everybody I know in the States has the shot. Like if you want to get the shot, you can get the shot. So I think that you could have your, they talk about the vaccine passport. Like if you've been vaccinated, you can come watch a live event, just because at least if you contract it at the game, you won't end up choking out the hospital and the healthcare system, right? Because
you won't be, and you're not transmitting it to anyone.
Well, they don't. That actually is a weird part where they're not sure about that.
We don't know that.
Yeah, we don't know that, but we know that you won't end up in the hospital because of COVID-19.
Right. All right. Here's a story that's flown under the radar simply because of other important human rights issues that are going on, but this is very important when it comes to baseball. In this particular context, there's a strong movement going on to get the baseball All-Star game this July moved out of Atlanta. Ever since the state of Georgia enacted a sweeping overhaul of its election law, introducing new voting restrictions. So, Mike, here's the deal. And this is from someone I'm no expert when it comes to politics and that, but
sure.
As you know, in Georgia, they barely voted in Joe Biden, the Democrats, by about 12,000 votes.
Yeah, it was close.
And voting rights advocates say that Georgia's new law is an attempt to influence whose votes are counted and suppress turnout, particularly among Black and brown voters.
Right.
Because they were the ones, for the most part, whose record turnouts helped Biden win Georgia.
Right. That's right.
And this is the backlash, because the state's Republican majority legislature now has more control over county election boards. They're the ones that certify elections. And also, this adds voter ID requirements for absentee ballots. It limits access to ballot drop boxes while codifying them into state law. It expands early voting days for the general election. It criminalizes the practice of line warming. You know what line warming is, Mike?
I guess it's if you have to go pee, somebody can hold your spot.
And volunteers will hand out food and water to voters who are standing in long lines.
See, this is upsetting me, Hebsy,
yeah,
I'll be honest.
This also, wait a second, I'm not finished. These reforms also ban the use of provisional ballots for most cases of out-of-precinct votings. It shortens runoff elections and all but eliminates the use of mobile voting buses, barring emergencies. And that's just some of the rules.
Right.
So what's Major League Baseball doing about it? Well, there's a big movement, like I say, to pull this game out of Atlanta. And wouldn't it be great if they awarded the game to Buffalo? Bill Shaken in the Los Angeles Times suggests it would be a lovely gesture. I'm going to quote him here. In appreciation for the city of Buffalo accommodating the homeless Toronto Blue Jays on short notice last summer and quite possibly again this summer. This would be an all-star game on short notice without compelling any current MLB city to sacrifice years of planning in a rush to hold the game this year.
Right.
Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred understandably needs some time to canvass owners, to build consensus and reach an agreement with Buffalo or any other alternate site, but Buffalo would be the best. And here's the best part of it, Mike, and I say this to you on the 2nd of April.
Yeah.
In less than 2 weeks, Major League Baseball will celebrate Jackie Robinson Day. Now, I don't think I have to explain to you the significance here that the league can meaningfully honor its civil rights heritage by announcing the 2021 All-Star Game will be moved out of Atlanta.
Hebsy, what do you think MLB...
that was a quote from Bill Shaken.
Okay, that was a quote. I was going to ask you what you think MLB will do.
They will. They will move it. Because having the game in Atlanta would be a disaster. It would look very, very bad for MLB. And quite frankly, the state of Georgia, with all, they say, oh, look at all the money that the All-Star Game brings in. It really doesn't. People are not going to be traveling into Atlanta to spend their money at the All-Star Game and the All-Star weekend. They're just not. And even so, they say that even people in Atlanta would, if they didn't spend their money at the All-Star Game, would spend it somewhere else. So it's not bringing in all these extra dollars. And the punishment is you're basically saying to the state legislature in Georgia, don't fuck with us.
Right.
Right.
Well, I'm reminded.
You want the All-Star Game? You want the All-Star Game? Change this.
Right.
Okay.
I love it.
Get rid of these reforms. Take it out of the legislature. Let people be. All right. And if not, we're going to punish your baseball team and any baseball fans you might have in the state of Georgia.
You know what packs the biggest punch ever is what happened in Arizona when they weren't celebrating Martin Luther King Day as a holiday. Do you remember? And then, of course, they said basically no Super Bowl for you until you pass that legislation. And that's kind of the pressure it took to get.
Well, the original pressure was they threatened to boycott the All-Star Game in Arizona that year, the first year that happened, where you had to prove citizenship, and green cards, and all that stuff. And cops could pull you over for whatever reason. They had wide total authority when it came to choosing who they would pull over, and they were pulling over not just in Arizona but in other states. Mexican Americans, asking them for ID to prove that they were born in this country, that they're paying taxes in this country, that they're not illegal aliens.
Wow.
And so that didn't work because they didn't boycott the All-Star Game. But you're right. That message was sent very clearly by the NFL. You better change this.
And I feel Disney, which owns Marvel now, I feel like Marvel uses Atlanta as their hub of production. And, that commerce moving their business out of the state speaks a language that they typically can hear. Yep.
Atlanta and Georgia certainly does not have a great history when it comes to race relations.
No, they do not.
So I expect that the Major League Baseball at this particular point is doing their due diligence, and there really doesn't take much to figure out what's going on in Georgia. I think it's just a case, like I said, of finding an alternate site. And Buffalo makes the most sense. They deserve it for what they've done, right? Yeah, and maybe by then they can pack the place for the All-Star Game.
But what about the fact that ballpark isn't really MLB ready, let alone All-Star?
Doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be.
And in fact, they tell me it's pretty MLB ready, considering that they've made major changes compared to what it was like last year. So I'm interested to seeing what that looks like. Because the Jays have invested quite a bit of money into that stadium in Buffalo.
So stay tuned. We'll see what MLB does here.
Right. Okay, Tom Brady's April Fool's joke yesterday was awful. He tweeted out a picture of himself superimposed standing on the field at the Big O with the Expos logo, saying baseball is coming back to Montreal in 2022, and I'm going to be the player, manager, owner. So you look at it and you go, oh, it's obviously an April Fool's joke, but why would he do that to the people of Montreal? And he was drafted by the Expos. So why would he do such a dumb thing? April Fool's isn't the way it used to be, right, especially the last couple of years. No reason to throw out fake news or a fake story or a hoax at this particular time in our lives. Am I right, Mike?
It is bad time. I think the last 2 April Fool's Day, nobody's in the mood for that nonsense.
No,
we're all
because
trying
the last
to
thing you want to do is like, April Fools, I don't have COVID or whatever it is.
Do you have time? Maybe you'll make time for this, but remind us of the fantastic Larry Robinson story. Like, do you have time to do that? Or
Right. So I want to tell you what sort of the history of April Fools.
Okay.
And you probably don't remember April Fools of 2019. It was so long ago, but somebody might have pulled a prank on you. Usually it happens early in the day when you're not aware that it's April Fool's Day. You have to be fooled by it. It doesn't usually happen at 3 p.m.
Well, I think it expires at noon. Didn't we all agree that April Fool's Day was done by noon?
Yeah, it should expire. By noon, your joke is done and that type of thing. So it used to be, back in the day, especially on radio, the immediacy of radio, prior to the internet, and sometimes in newspapers, they would print something that would show up the next morning on your doorstep and it would be, what? Like the Toronto Sun one year superimposed Guy Lafleur's head over a Toronto Maple Leaf jersey.
Right. Front
page of the Sun. And there's something like, we got who?
Right.
And people were like, holy shit, we got Guy Lafleur. And then you'd open up the paper and it'd say April Fools and that kind of thing, right?
Gotcha.
But on radio, the beauty of it is most people, when they get up in the morning, they're hearing their favorite morning radio show. They're getting their information that it's authoritative. They hear, what? So as bad as that Tom Brady joke was, and you don't do that to the great sports fans of Montreal. You don't make fun of the fact that they lost a baseball team in 2004, a fantastic team that they had loved since 1969.
Right.
Imagine having the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Bluejays pulled out of this city.
I can't imagine.
No. So imagine the pain that Montreal fans have gone through. And imagine being a young Montreal sports fan, never seen the Expos play live, only heard stories about your city used to have a baseball team.
Right.
And now Tom Brady pulls off this thing. So let me tell you what it was like in 1980 when I worked in Montreal, and the Habs had just won 4 straight Stanley Cups. And the year I got there was the year that Sammy Pollock retired as the general manager. Irving Grundman had taken over as the GM. Pollock, of course, had won all those Stanley Cups, made all those great trades, overseen great Montreal Canadiens teams for 2 decades. They lost Jacques Lemaire, their great center. Coco decided he was going to retire. Ken Dryden, the goalie, you know him? He retired. And Coach Scotty Bowman, when he found out he wasn't going to be named the general manager after Pollock left, quit as coach. So this is the team ahead after the 4 straight Stanley Cups. And Boom Boom Geoffrion was brought in as the new coach. Pretty wild stuff.
Right.
So this is what was going on in Montreal. And at the time, the Expos were a thing. They hadn't broken through yet. That would be a year later, but every year they were pounding on the door with great young talent. Montreal was a great place. Fabulous place for sports. The Alouettes had a good football team, put 60,000 in the Big O.
Wow.
For football games. And so one day I'm working for FM 96 in Montreal, and it's March the 31st, and I got Larry Robinson coming into the studio to talk about the Habs, who were struggling at the time. And I don't remember, it was just prior to the playoffs, and they were going to make the playoffs, but they weren't anywhere near as good as they were the team that had won 4 straight cups. And Robinson comes in, and I knew him pretty well. How's it going, buddy? Whatever. And we go to roll the tape, and he says to me, "Are you doing anything for April Fools?" And I said, "No." He goes, "Well, let's pull off an April Fool's joke." And I hadn't thought of it because I had not done morning radio up to that point. I had done afternoon sportscasting. I hadn't done mornings. And so he's saying, "Boy, this would be great. Have him wake up in the morning and, let's do a trade." So we look at the paper, and Marcel Dion of the Kings, a Quebec native who I'm sure Montreal fans would love to have, especially that year when they drafted Doug Wickenheiser. They should have drafted Denis Savard.
Right.
High-flying Frenchman, the whole thing like that. So they would have loved Marcel Dion. So I say to Larry, well, Dion's going to probably win, either him or this kid Gretzky is going to win the Art Ross Trophy. Let's have you traded to L.A. for Marcel Dion. And he goes, "Oh, great. That would be great." Now, Robinson was the best defenseman in the NHL at the time. He would go on to win the Norris. So you're trading the Norris Trophy winner for the Art Ross Trophy winner.
Right.
Anyway, we roll the tape, and I say, "Larry Robinson joins us. And Larry, you got some news." And he says, I just found out I got a phone call. I've been traded to the LA Kings for Marcel Dion. And I'm sitting across from him and I'm biting my lip. This guy, I mean, I knew he had a great sense of humor, but now he's really taken it to the next level. And it's believable that I'm getting chills. And I go, like, what happened? How did you find out? Did you ever get an indication? He goes, no, I never did. I thought Montreal would be my home forever. And he's holding back tears, and I'm just biting my tongue, and it's fabulous. And we're taping this. And the engineer that's taping it, a guy named Steve Mannett, he can't believe what he's hearing. This is fantastic. Anyway, the interview goes for 3 or 4 minutes. What do you have to say to the fans of Montreal, Larry, after all these great years, after 6 Stanley Cups or whatever it was? He goes, well, I just want to say the best fans of the world, and we're going to hitch the boat up to the truck and drive to LA, but my heart will always be in Montreal. Like that, right? And he's breaking down. I go, Larry Robinson, thank you so much. Oh my God, it must be a terrible day. Good luck in Los Angeles. All the best. Thank you, Mark. Like that. Stop tape.
Wow.
That was amazing. Oh my God, I can't wait to hear what the response is.
He sold it.
I tell you. The next day, the next morning at 7 a.m., I'm on live on CJFM FM 96. Mark Burns is the morning man. We're upstairs from CJ80, the powerful #1 station in all of Montreal. They don't know what's going on. They have no idea. We did this. We tell nobody. I come on with Mark Burns. And, Mark says, and Mark Hebsy joins us now, and he's got a very special guest. And they roll the tape. I go, I'm here with Larry Robinson. So it sounds like it's live in the studio.
Right.
And the whole tape goes. And the switchboard at the radio station is lighting up. The newsroom, lighting up. People are freaking out. And we play it, and we're just sort of, and people are coming up from CJD. What's all this going? What's going on?
Right.
And we don't say a word.
Right.
We say nothing. And then the next sportscast is at 7:30. And I go, okay, well, if you missed it earlier, and we play the tape again. Right? If you missed it earlier, Larry Robinson was here, and here's what he had to say. And we run it again at 8 o'clock, and then again at 8:30. And by now, the city's going nuts. By now, CFCF Radio, our competitor, is getting phone calls saying, well, how come you guys don't have a Robinson trade? Players are getting phone calls at home. Robinson's getting a phone call at home from Claude Ruel, the coach at this time. What the hell is going on, Larry?
Wow.
People are freaking out.
Yeah.
And CFCF decides, oh my God, they've scooped us on this, and then they realize it's an April Fool's joke,
right.
And then they decide they're going to pull an April Fool's joke by having Jeff Reardon traded from the Expos. But it was too late. By then they were screwed. We had them. We had the whole city. And then at 9 o'clock, I come on again and say, okay, you've heard the story, whatever. By the way, April Fools at 9 a.m. And people are calling, you son of a bitch, Tabernacle.
Sure.
We nailed him. Unbeknownst to me, a reporter from one of the French language newspapers, either La Presse or Le Journal de Montréal, had Marcel Dion's phone number in Los Angeles, as reporters do.
Sure.
Phoned him at about 6:30 in the morning Montreal time when he heard it on the radio.
Right.
Waking up Marcel Dion, who had just gotten home from a bender, at 3:30 a.m. Los Angeles time, to ask him his comments on the trade.
Wow. Wow.
To which Dion is, what trade? Now, I find all this out much later, years later, at a golf tournament when Dion sees me and he goes, you son of a bitch. You're the one who pulled that off.
Wow.
And I also found out a few days later when I got a clipping in the mail of the newspaper article in the Los Angeles Times, talking about the whole hoax, how we pulled it off, me and Robinson and all that. Because the story ran on UPI, United Press International, which is like the Associated Press, a huge news service in the U.S. They picked up the story. They'd called me to ask me, what happened, and wrote a story about it.
Hebsy, this story is amazing. Like, this is amazing.
Robinson was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then when Kevin Shea wrote his book about Larry Robinson, he called me and he asked me about it. And I said, yeah. And I told him the story. He called Robinson. And Robinson said, oh, yeah. Robinson says, it was my idea and all that. And as I recalled, it was because he had said to me, are you doing anything for April Fools?
Yeah, he wanted to do something.
No. And Larry Robinson, one of the greatest jokesters of all time.
I got one question, though. Did you consider putting those irate callers on air live? Like, did you? Because is that the kind of show you had the capability of
No,
doing?
they weren't irate. You see, they thought he had been traded. So they weren't irate. They were confused and trying to find out if anyone else could confirm it. But they didn't go, oh, this must be an April Fool's joke. Because they just heard Larry Robinson say he had been traded.
Yeah, we're much more cynical today. I feel like maybe back in 1980, you were less. Because today, I don't think it would last 2 seconds. Like, you'd get the Tom Brady tweet and you'd have 2 seconds of like, and then you'd be like, oh yeah, it's April 1.
Right, exactly. Someone would say fake account or whatever it is. But back then, I mean, how much more real could it be when you hear that's Larry Robinson's voice? It's not some guy doing Larry Robinson. That's him. I've heard him speak. That's him.
But Hebsy, that's why it works so perfectly, because Larry Robinson bought in 100% because it was his idea. Like, so he bought in 100%. Brilliant. Shout out, by the way, it's early in the morning, but it's nice to have Gene Velitis joining us from Vancouver. So shout out to
Gene of Jesse and Gene, the Jesse and Gene
the one
podcast
and only
with a K, podcast with a K.
Right. They didn't know how to spell podcast. They screwed it up.
That's it. So that was the April Fool's joke. And that's back in the day where, like, for example, I think the following year, one of the radio stations painted a green line down the middle of, that was St. Patrick's Day. That's right. They put a green line down the middle of St. Catherine Street. I'm just trying to think what other stunts people would pull off. But generally, it was like a fake trade.
The BBC did some
fake news.
Gotcha. Because the BBC did a famous one about spaghetti plants or something, like spaghetti cheese or whatever.
Right. Well, it's not really unlike, even though it's not April Fool's, it's not unlike the War of the Worlds. Except that it wasn't an April Fool's prank, but it was a prank.
Right. And there was a really bad one yesterday, though. I was reading it was a terrible one about the worst ever April Fool's Day prank would be saying you got a whole whack of vaccines coming. Everybody in the province can get vaccinated now. And then saying April Fool's. Like, that to me is just cruel and unusual punishment. Like, that's not funny at all. But I think in Alberta or something, somebody tweeted that. It's
got to be done early in the morning.
And it's got to be harmless, right?
And you got to wrap it up, by like 9 o'clock.
Yeah, it's got to be like, I remember when my buddy did you hear Eric Lindros is a Toronto Maple Leaf? Like, that kind of stuff. It's got to be like that, like harmless stuff like that. Or, Tom Brady, who, by the way, no one looks at Tom Brady as somehow like the voice of reason. And like, he's made a few bad decisions over the years. But that's not bad. Like, I kind of, the Expos coming back, it's not that bad because it doesn't hurt anybody. It's just, sports.
Nah, I disagree. Okay. I mean, I think if you asked any Montreal Expos fan, they'd think Brady was a piece of shit for doing that.
Sure, but
he didn't have to do that.
He's also been, photographed with, I believe with, Donald Trump red cap on. So I think that,
Yeah, but again, no reason to do that. No reason to bring that pain up. Even for a split second, for a Montreal fan to go, Expos are coming back, that's cruel.
Oh, I love it. Good one, Hebsy.
Okay, that's it for episode 226 of Hebsy on Sports. Thanks so much for listening. Tell your friends. We're trying to build an audience here. We're trying to attract sponsors too, but we want to hear from you, what you like about the show, what you want to hear on the show, and any feedback, positive or negative. Believe me, you got negative feedback, lay it on me, man.
Yeah, we can take it.
I don't expect it all to be hugs and kisses.
Here's an idea while Gene is listening. Why doesn't Podcast with a K sponsor Hebsy on Sports?
The Mutual Admiration Society.
Right. He's a big fan of yours.
Beautiful. And we got people subscribing as we speak to the YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Mark Hebsher.
Yeah, that's key. That's key. I want to, before you close this off, I want listeners to know that if they want to, join in the fun live, and we read the comments live, I keep my eye on your YouTube page. Absolutely subscribe to youtube.com/Mark Hebsher. And every Friday at 9:20, we'll be there recording the podcast, and there's some nice back and forth. So do that.
Yeah, we may not have you on the air live, because then I might say something like, "Yeah, what do you know, you idiot?" I don't want to do that. But yeah, man, hit us up live on the air. If you got a good question or a comment, we'll read it. We won't let you read it on the air because you might swear or say something, but
no swearing.
Acknowledge it for sure. All right. And in the meantime, if you're looking for another podcast to listen to, look no further than Toronto Mike's fantastic podcast, outstanding podcast. It's torontomike.com.
It is torontomike.com. Hebsy, did you listen to Brian McFarlane on the program?
I didn't yet. But I love Brian McFarland.
He's good. He's out of fucks to give, and it's awesome because he's turning 90 in August, and he just tells stories. Bobby Hull,
he's from North York. I used to play football against his son, Mike McFarland.
His dad used to write the Hardy Boys books.
His dad was a famous writer, and you can see that the apple didn't fall far from the tree because Brian is a prodigious writer. I mean, Brian has written more about hockey than anyone.
Right.
Anyway, that's it for this edition. Thanks for allowing us into your headspace. Back with another edition next week. Until then, have a fabulous Easter weekend. Stay safe. So long for now. This podcast has been produced by TMDS and accelerated by Roam Phone. Roam Phone brings you the most reliable virtual phone service to run your business and protect your home number from unwanted calls. Visit roamphone.ca to get started.
Okay, let me just turn off our live stream here. So goodbye. Thanks for joining us. See you next week. Same time, same channel.